Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ben here. I'm back again today doing another video. The subject of today's video is going to be on Kobe Bryant. I'm going to basically be breaking down which version of Kobe I think was better. So you've got the number 8 Kobe, which is 1996 through 2006, or you've got the number 24 Kobe, which was the years 2006 to 2016. So he wore each jersey for 10 seasons, and I'm basically going to be breaking down which version of Kobe's career, the first 10 years or the second 10 years, was better. But that's pretty easy to separate because that's when the jersey switch was. So let's get into it. So if you look at Kobe Bryant's statistics, he and just accolades in general, he is a one-time MVP. The one MVP he won was in 2007 to 8, which is in the second half of his career. But if you look at All-Star appearances, he has 18, with 8 of those coming in the first half of his career and 10 coming in the second half of his career. But be aware that his All-Star selections in 2014, 15, and 16 were much more based on legacy rather than talent. If you need proof of that, he played 6 games in 2014 when he got picked, and he was shooting 42% from the field and averaging 14 points per game, and shooting 8 or 19% from the three-point line, so not doing great that season. The next year he played about half the season and averaged 22 points per game, but he shot 37% from the field, shooting 20 shots per night. He also shot a pretty bad 29% from the three-point line. So as you can see, he was still putting up a decent numbers this season, but just not as good as what he had been doing previously. And then his last season, he played 66 games, so essentially playing the whole season. But he shot 36% from the field, 28% from three, averaged 18 points per game. So as you can see, they're not great. But now on the other end of that spectrum, you could say his All-Star appearance in 1998 wasn't really warranted, in that he only averaged 15 points per game. He was a sixth man, and people really only picked him because they wanted to see him go up against Jordan, because that people presumed that would be Jordan's last year in the league, so people wanted to see Kobe in there. So he didn't really warrant that All-Star appearance either. So if you really narrow it down to the prime years of Kobe's career, I'd say his prime years are from 1998 to 2013. And so if you break that up to his first 10 years versus his last 10 years, of those 15 seasons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those come in the first half, and 7 come in the second half, so pretty even there. His best 2 individual statistical seasons came in 05 to 06 was the first one, and then 06 to 07 was the second. So in the 2005 to 6 season, Kobe averaged 35 points per game, shot 45% from the field, 35% from three. Let's see here, 85% from the line, 5 rebounds a game, 5 assists a game, 2 steals a game. So he did pretty well there. And then if you look at his next season, in 2006 to 7, the first year that he had been wearing number 24, he averaged 32 points per game, 46% from the field, 34% from three, 87% from the line, 6 rebounds a game, 5 assists, 1 steal. So pretty similar numbers, except a few less points per game. But to me, it's really hard to pick first 10 years or last 10 years. But I guess if I had to go personally, I would go first 10, just because if you look at Kobe, I think that he stood out more as an individual star in the second half of his career, and for that reason, I think people would be more inclined to say number 24 Kobe was better than number 8. And also he won the MVP as number 24 Kobe, and he was the Finals MVP twice as 24 Kobe, and he had more All-Star appearances and stuff like that. But to me, I think that he was actually better as number 8 Kobe, and I'll get into why right now. So actually, I think a better thing to do right now, just before we get into all that, would just be to quickly look at his All NBA appearances, because those can also be useful in determining which 10 years were better for him. So he made the All NBA first team 11 times. He made the All NBA team overall, first, second, and third team. He made it 15 times, which were the 15 years of his prime that I outlined, 98 to 2013. So he made an All NBA team 8 times in the first 10 years of his career, and he made an All NBA team seven times in the second half of his career. The caveat to this is that he did actually make the first team more in the second half of his career. He made 7 appearances on the All NBA first team, whereas in the first 10 years of his career, he made 3 appearances on the All NBA first team, 2 on the All NBA second team, and 4 appearances on the All NBA first team, 2 on the second team, 2 on the third team, for a total of 8. So getting into why I think Kobe was better in the first half of his career, I think my argument mainly hinges on that despite Kobe more honing his craft in the second half of his career, I think something that he had in the first half was the athleticism, and I think a lot of people forget about that. I think because what we saw, um, what we saw last out of Kobe was a guy who was a master of footwork, a master of being a guard who plays in the low post well, much like Michael Jordan, and he was very skillful, but we forget that Kobe Bryant in the first half of his career was basically a better version of Vince Carter, where he had this hyper athleticism, won the dunk contest in '98, and he was basically a better Vince Carter. Is the only way to say it. And um, I think the second half of his career, you'd more compare him to like a slightly worse Michael Jordan, is what he was. But in the first half, he was a better Vince Carter, and I'm not saying that that really is the distinction that's gonna define it here for me. But I think in the first half of his career, he had the skills and he had the footwork, but he didn't have to use it as much because he had the athleticism that he could rely on a lot. And the reason that he started using his skills, his back down, his low post up moves, his turnarounds and stuff like that in the second half of his career, the thing that motivated that was that in the second half he didn't have the athleticism that he could rely on as much. Now don't get me wrong, Kobe was still athletic, but just not that jump out of the building athleticism that he had when he was in his first 10 years of his career. So I think from that reason, I think Kobe was more of a dual threat in his younger years, in that he could just ham it or yam it down your throat with a dunk, and he still had the skills, he still had the range from outside. Whereas I think in his younger years, he became, in the second half of his career, he became less of a threat to just yam it on you. Like, I mean, it happens to a lot of players. It happens to like a LeBron James too, or a Vince Carter, or Tracy McGrady, or Jason Richardson is a good example. And Blake Griffin too. Blake Griffin is the perfect example. This season, you see Blake sort of transitioning to the second half of his career right now. He took a lot more threes and jumpers this year, and he's become a lot more skilled. Whereas in the first half of his career, basically his whole skill set was just dunking. LeBron, if you look at how he plays during the first half of his career, basically his stint in Cleveland the first time, a lot of his shots and plays are just driving to the rim and dunking. Same with Vince Carter and T-Mac. But then as you saw, as they go on, their shot improves a lot. They become a lot better at jump shots, turnarounds, moves, stuff like that. And they become a lot more skillful. And so that's what happened to Kobe too. But I think because he was so good at both for the first half of his career, the skills were always there. It's not like he just developed them when he became older. He had those when he was 22. He did. If you don't believe me, go back and watch some Kobe clips. There's just as many clips of him doing his moves when he's 22 as him dunking. He still had the moves back then. So for that reason, he was a dual threat. I think that Kobe was better back then. And I'm not taking anything away from him when, let's say, it's like 2010. He's still a phenomenal player back then. Still probably the second best player in the league, or the first player in the league, depending on how you see it. But he just didn't have that raw jump out of the gym athleticism that he had when he was younger. So for those reasons, I think that Kobe was better in the first 10 years of his career. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you have a good day. Hope I see you next time. And again, if you have any comments, leave them below. I'd love to hear from you. Bye.